It's very, very unfortunate that the track record of collaboration between Canada and Ontario is being challenged by the new government. And as you can see, Minister MacLeod is there. She's not joining us at this podium. Her government has refused to be even part of our communique. And let me be very clear. The meeting today was not simply about irregular migration. That was, of course, one of the items. But we talked about attracting more workers to Canada. We talked about the benefits of economic immigration. We talked about francophone immigration. We talked about settlement and integration. How do we work together more closely on that? And on all those topics, Ontario has an interest in making sure that more and more workers are there to meet the labour market needs of employers in Ontario, as well as all the provinces and territories that are represented here. So we talked about all those issues, but unfortunately Ontario has chosen to step away from the table. They failed their municipalities because they're saying that we don't have anything to do with this. But the fact of the matter is temporary housing and housing issues are a shared responsibility, and we have to work together. And we're committed to work together. Having said that, I've spoken to Mayor Tory of Toronto, and I've told him that the Government of Canada will have the backs of all the municipalities affected by this, and we will be there for Ontario. We've invested $50 million, we have announced $50 million in allocation for this issue of irregular migration and how it affects provinces. That money is flowing at the end of this month. But make no mistake, this will be easier if provinces work with us to address this issue. On the issue of the dormitories and the folks that are in there, it's no longer 800, it's 650 now. But we will address that, and I've told the mayor we will not let you hold the bag on this. The Government of Canada will have your back, and I hope that the Government of Ontario can join us. Lastly, it's not just the issue of non-cooperation. Ontario, sadly, has chosen the language of fear and division. They've chosen to intentionally use language that could potentially criminalize asylum seekers in the minds of Canadians. They've intentionally chosen to use false language with respect to so-called queue jumping, when we have told them over and over again there's no such thing. Asylum seekers are processed in a separate queue at the IRB, and all the other regular immigration programs are processed by IRCC. And conflating the two knowingly is irresponsible, it's divisive, it's fear-mongering, and it is not Canadian. And it is very dangerous, and that is the politics of fear and division that they've chosen to take. They're regurgitating the politics of fear and division that the Harper Conservatives peddled in Canada. Canadians rejected that, and I hope they continue to reject that. On the issue of calling these people illegal, asylum seekers have a legal right, and Canada has signed international obligations. We have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Once someone is on Canadian soil and claims asylum, we have an obligation domestically and internationally to grant them a fair hearing. If they have a legitimate refugee claim, which is determined by an independent immigration refugee board, they get to stay and they get our protection. If they don't have a legitimate refugee claim, they get to be removed. That's our law. What Ontario is doing is they're taking this issue, and the numbers are very low. On some days we have only 14 people crossing the border. They're taking that issue, they're calling it a crisis, they're victimizing these people, they're demonizing them, they're trying to pit one group of newcomers against another by talking about a fake and false queue jumping narrative which simply doesn't exist. And it is really unfortunate, and I can assure you, on behalf of Canadians, I will fight back against that narrative of fear with facts.
Challenged the Minister of Federal Immigration on some of the issues we're confronting in Ottawa. The exchange became testy, and I chose to leave the meeting, and here is why. In the City of Toronto alone, we have over 2,400 people that are in temporary shelters. That is surpassing what the capacity is for the City of Toronto. We know that that is a $74 million bill. My City of Ottawa, our mayor has indicated that our shelter capacity is also over capacity, and therefore they are requiring about $11 million to deal with that. As the minister responsible for Ontario Works, which is our welfare system, I have inquired into what this has had an impact on our welfare rolls. Presently, for all refugee claimants, we are supporting them with $328 million. Of that $90 million, we believe, can be attributed to those who have crossed the border illegally. I'm not going to get into a debate on semantics with the minister, but I did request that he take into consideration these exorbitant costs, which you can tell is about $175 million, on top of the $3 million that Ontario provided to the Red Cross, in addition to the 800 beds in 2 college dormitories inside the City of Toronto, which, by the way, must be vacated by August the 9th because we do have students returning to school in the fall. I was expecting that we would be able to collaborate on that. Instead, what I saw here today was an attempt to talk, him calling me un-Canadian, which I take great offense to, and I do hope he will apologize and reconsider his language. I also won't be bullied into accepting what the federal government is doing, because we do have severe and significant challenges inside the province of Ontario. So with that, I was very clear that we would not sign the communique, that there is a problem at the border. The border must be enforced, and that Ontario should be made whole for all of the costs that we have incurred. And in addition to that, I would just like to point out that the federal government has only promised us $11 million, and that has yet to flow. So again, that is insufficient, inadequate, and I'm calling on the federal government to reconsider.